All right, so let's do this. I'm going to take you through a planning session. This is going to be 1 hour, and we're going to go through it pretty quickly. And I hope that all of you are going to take lots of notes while we're doing this, because it's really an hour spent on doing some business planning for you guys as agents. My background, for those of you that don't know me, is I am a real estate business coach. I'm also a CPA and MBA, and we've been helping thousands of brokerages across the United States, Canada, South America, the Caribbean, South Africa, Europe, and Southeast Asia. And our business planning for the last 20 years has been used by agents, by managers. We also work for corporations across the world as well, multinationals, and really what you're going to go through today is what we go through with our large corporations as well. It's everything I'm going to share is in-house developed. My background is business strategy, but I have a specialty in mergers and acquisitions and divestitures, and specifically valuations, which I want to tie into your agent business today. And as I mentioned, I have my MBA, have my CPA. That was sort of early in my life that I did those things, but I've been part of C-suite ownership, and obviously being an entrepreneur myself. So the reason I like to put that in there is that all of you today are entrepreneurs, and I want you to attack today as an entrepreneur. So the two deliverables I have for you today is one, I need to deliver great content for all of you, and with regards to that, I need to share with you creative ideas and experience and technical know-how. You're not just here to listen, but you're here to work on your business. And I like to say work on your business as opposed to work in your business. And for those, I mean, many of you have heard that before. It's not, chasing fires or putting out fires or chasing challenges, answering emails, voicemails, etc. But it's stepping back from your business and looking at your business and figuring out what needs to happen next. The action items, the other deliverable that I have for you all is to provide you with some action items. And one of the action items that I have for you right at the beginning of this is just to get the workbook printed off, or like I said, available on a second screen, so you can take notes throughout today. I'd love all of you to leave with at least a framework of your plan. And it doesn't matter whether you're a divisional leader or whether you're an agent or whatever your leadership role is in your business, you're going to get something out of this. So I want you to treat it that way. And then today, what I want you to think about is I want you to look at yourself as the CEO of your business today. So I really want you to put the hat on that you're not just a salesperson, you're not just a marketing leader, you're not just let's say an operations director, but all of you are right now CEOs of the business that you oversee. And the reason why I say that is that everything we do today, the next action of what we do today is totally up to you. In other words, you have the power to move the needle, and that to me is well, it's actually the position I love being in. I used to hate being in the corporate world because there was so much red tape to make things happen. I think all of you on this call, you have the ability to make anything happen, and that's really how I want all of you to think about this. Now, one of the challenges we all have as owners and presidents and CEOs of our business is that the solution to our current problems, no matter where your business is at right now, the solution to your current problem cannot be found from the level of consciousness that created them. Which means that, I know that I have challenges, and I created those challenges because of how I operate and how I run my business. And so we have to look at things differently. We have to try to look at things through a different lens. And today I'm going to share a number of ideas. And I guess really what I'm asking you for is to embrace new thoughts today. Think about things in a different way. I'm going to go through a very basic planning strategy here. But what you're going to find is that it's a planning strategy that IBM will use. It's a planning strategy that Kellogg's will use. And you, as doesn't matter how big or small your business is, this is the fundamentals of breaking down and getting ready for 2023. So really, I just want you to take it on like that and think about this idea that that the ideas that you're going to come up with need to come from other sources. So right now, I'm going to be, let's call it a business planning coach for you. You might have a coach that you get lots of ideas from. You might get your ideas from the internet. You might go onto Inman and read articles, and you might go attend conferences where you hear new speakers. I mean, this is how we break that idea that of all the problems or challenges we have really have been created by our limited way of thinking. And it's just a reality for all of us. So as entrepreneurs, we need to like expand the way we think and think things new. Now, just to set up today, what I'd like to share a couple of things with you is just what the economic outlook for 2023 is. Now, I'm not an economist, but like I said, I like to read and look at different areas to give me a different perspective. So I'm just going to share some things I've picked up. One is that I understand that interest rates, I know that interest rates are up right now from the beginning of the year, and I know that they're going to continue to rise from the, let's call it the experts to be in the coming months, both in the 30-year and 15-year mortgage rates. The second is that there's been talk that there's going to be a possible recession in the second and third quarter. I think we're already seeing a bit of that in some regions already. So this isn't, it's not rocket science. It's something that we're seeing, and that they feel that there's going to be a possibility of that continuing. We're also seeing a drop in housing prices, or a correction we're going to see. And again, this is being spoken by a number of different, let's call it experts in our industry. And the last item I wanted to just make sure we understood was, when we look at these, is think about, you're the CEO of your business. I'm giving you some very broad, let's call it economic outlook statements from 2023, and they're coming from Goldman Sachs, and they're coming from, the media, from different media outlets. They're very consistent, but they're very generic. What I want you to think about is what's happening in your specific neighborhood. What do you think how's your neighborhoods going to be impacted, the ones that you serve right now, in the coming months? And really, I guess what I'm asking you to do is, these questions or statements I'm making, who are your target clients, and how are these economic changes going to impact you going into next year? And I think it's a good time just to jot down a couple of thoughts around this. So I'm just going to pause for a second. And this slide itself is really important after today to expand on for yourself. In other words, what are the assumptions that you want to go into 2023 knowing? And let me give you a real silly one. Like I could know that, hey, I've got to go in for an operational procedure next year, and I know that I'm going to be 6 weeks out of the game. Well, that's an economic impactor to me as the CEO of the business. So I would jot that down as a specific item that I need to deal with next year. So when I think about economic outlook, I'm also thinking about me personally, and I might even be thinking about my neighborhood, about what's going on in my neighborhood. Maybe I'm in Fort Myers. You guys aren't in Fort Myers, but I have a client in Fort Myers. Well, their economic outlook is so much different than the rest of the country because of what happened to them a couple of months ago. And as a business owner, they have to think differently in how they're going to take advantage of that going forward. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense to all of you, and the way that you prepare for your business planning going forward. So let me take the next step here is after recognizing that this is something that we want to keep on the side visually, that we can, as we do our business plan, I want to go through a high level process so you understand where we're going here. And keep in mind, everyone has their workbook open. Aaron, you might have to share that one more time for those that joined late, because what happens is the past chat items are not going to be showing up for others. So that'd be great for those that just joined us. All right, so let's keep going here. So I want to give you a bulletproof business plan framework, and the workbook that you downloaded actually follows this. And we're going to go through and do this today as a group. So the first item is on this is we refer to as dreams. You could call it bucket list, or you could call it, Simon Sinek calls it, your big why. So in other words, why do you, everything that you do is for a reason. You work, you're an agent, you're a business leader, whatever you are, you're doing this and you're running a business, you're the CEO of your business for a purpose. And the purpose is beyond making money. The purpose is beyond serving people. The question is, why do I need to do this well, and what are my goals, big picture? So we call those dreams, and I'm gonna share an exercise with you that is actually really powerful for the entrepreneurs that I work with. The second item is goals, and that is so we figure out what our dreams are, or our bucket list is, and then we set what I would refer to as 5-year, 3-year, and 1-year goals for our business. If we're a CEO, we can't just look down at our feet and look at what the next option is. We got to be thinking about the long term. So in our industry, the long term for us might be the next 12 months. We might think, okay, I'm just going to plan out the next 12 months, but I'm going to focus on the next 90 days in my short-term plan. I'm not going to debate what's the right answer, but I've seen 3-year plans, 1-year plans, and 90-day plans that all have goals attached to them. So that's the next part of a plan, is to set our goals. And I'm going to break that down for you as well. The third is then to set strategy. The fourth is to break that strategy down into tactics. And then the fifth is obviously to drive action and results. That is the framework of any great plan. And I've seen millions of them out there. They all follow the same kind of line of thought. But what I find is the weak ones sometimes miss one of these items. They might miss this dreams part at the beginning, which to me doesn't provide the motivation why I want to implement a business plan. Now, after the business plan is complete, we then have to measure our results. We have to reflect on what our results are, and then we literally redo the whole process again. So some people will do this business planning. I was with a corporation, actually, some of you might know this well, Bacardi Rum, and they actually do business planning every month, and they update and reforecast every month. So they go through this process in a 30-day cycle, and the whole process. So as CEOs of your business, you have to decide, how frequently you do this. And the way you're thinking is, the more frequently I do this, the more focused I'm going to be. So if it's a 90-day cycle, then you're going to be going through this process, measuring, reflecting, and redoing every 90 days. Some of us, it's once a year, and sometimes we struggle even doing it once a year. But if you're here, you've already committed to get to starting to think this way. So let's dive quickly into the first item, and what you're gonna start to use your workbook right now. And the first item is, I'm actually following along in the workbook itself. So if you flip over the first page, you're gonna see something that's called dreams, my dreams, and your dream list. And I'm not gonna give you enough time today to do the whole thing, but I want to encourage you. I want to give you enough information here to encourage you. So what you'll see on that page is a list of 15 items. And if you think about it like a bucket list, what are the 15 things that you want to do in your life that you haven't accomplished yet? And I want you to be really specific. I want you to write them down. And I want you to think really big. So these 50 items, I want them, the first 20 these first 15 are gonna be really easy, but I actually want you to make a list of 50. So this workbook gives you a spot to write the first 15 down, but I want you to think, okay, let's think about other areas of my life. I want you to dream like a child. And what I mean by that is, is that you have creativity in your thoughts of what you could obviously accomplish. And as adults, we always have these limiting beliefs of what we can do. So that's why I mentioned dream like a child. And then I want you to be really specific because the details are really key. I did this exercise. I went to go speak to a group of about 1,000 entrepreneurs, and it was a big hall, and I was referring to this specific step, and I was sharing with them that on my flight over to the conference, I decided I'm going to do this exercise myself. And I took out my journal and I wrote 1 to 50 down, and I started writing down everything I wanted to accomplish. And I started off with those material things. I want to buy a boat. I want to buy my Porsche 4S. And I started thinking, well, okay, that's kind of, it's an interesting goal, financial goals, but it wasn't really getting me that excited. So then I started thinking about other areas. Like one of the things I wrote down in my first 3 was, taking my entire family over to South Africa. This was about 10 years ago that I'm talking about this situation, and I wrote it down because my father is one of 15, and his whole family's in South Africa. I have 3 children myself, so he has 15 in his family. He hasn't been able to take his grandchildren over to South Africa to basically be proud and share them with his rest of his family. So anybody who's traveled to South Africa, it's a big deal. It's 22 hours. It's about two and a half grand per person. So just the flights alone are over 10 grand. So for me, it was a bucket list item, but it was one that I thought about, and I wrote it down. So the important part here is that if you write down these bucket list items, what you'll find is writing it down is the first step to getting them done. And then what happens is it gives me motivation in my business to say, okay, what do I need to do to get that done? Now, I just want to share with you some of the areas of those 50 items that they could be. They could come from, your career, your family, your relationships, your spiritual focus, health and fitness, service, travel, adventure, financial, and it could even be experiences and knowledge. But if you look at those 9 areas of focus, you should be able to come up with 50 items that you want to accomplish in your life. And then the exercise I want you to take it to is, if you have a spouse or a partner or someone close to you that does a lot of things with you, is share that list with them or get them to do the list and then compare the list together. So my wife, Colleen, I got her to do it, and then I got her to review my list. And what that did was it created some accountability between the 2 of us, but it also got into some really cool conversations about what we really were after long-term in our lives, and allowed us to align ourselves with those long-term goals. So great exercise. Every entrepreneur that I've done this with got a lot out of that step. But then, because you're really not ready to do your business plan unless you've done this. So a really important step in the business planning process. It's really your why. Why are you going to be working on the weekend? Why are you going to be working at night? Why are you even here today building a business plan? Well, these are trying to cover off your whys. And that's on your second page of your workbook. And I'm just going to fly through this. I mentioned some of you came on here a little later, and I'm not sure if there was a duplicate of links that were shared, but wanted to share with you that this is being recorded. So if you missed the first 10 minutes, you'll be able to watch the recording and catch up. But we're on the 3rd page of the workbook, which Aaron has posted, and you can download that and use that for today. But it is, as I introduced, a power hour. So you're not gonna build a proper business plan in an hour, but what you are gonna get out of this hour is a framework of how you're going to complete your 2023 plan. And also, I'm gonna force you to think through a few areas that you might not have thought through before. And that's the value you're gonna get today. So the next, I want you to turn the page in your workbook, and you'll see a title at the top called Mission and Goals. And I want to talk about really setting your goals. But before I even set goals, you as entrepreneurs and CEOs of your business, you need to understand what I refer to as key performance indicators, KPIs. And And the reason why we want to talk about KPIs in our industry is that if you don't measure the right thing, we're going to do the wrong, our behavior is going to be influenced the wrong way. So it's really important for us as CEOs of our business to figure out what are the right KPIs for our business. I'll give you an example. Weight loss is a result or something that some people are after. I shouldn't even say weight loss, just getting healthier, and weight obviously comes into play there. And so there are KPIs around even weight loss. And one of them can just be stepping on a scale and seeing your weight. But we all know that could be deceiving, because if you work out and you do the right things and you eat properly, you might actually start to lose inches, but you might actually get heavier. Your muscle mass might grow. You might start getting better and healthier, but you're actually getting heavier. So the KPI of weight might not be the right one, but body fat might be a better one, or your daily calorie intake versus your calorie burn might be something that's tracked as a KPI. Those are KPIs that might be more functional for the end result of a healthier you. So when you think about the business, the same thing is true. So I want to share a couple of them with you. The first one I'll tie in is just your closed transactions. So I want you to write that down as under 12-month goals. Number one should be, how many closed transactions did you have last year or this current year? How many closed transactions are you targeting for next year? Again, very broad, high-level KPI. Then let's go a little deeper. Is what is your average gross commission income? Is it 2.5%? Is it 2.4%? Is it 2%? Have you been cutting commissions to get business and it's like 1.5%? What is it? It's because it's a real number. It's what you earned in the past year. And then what is your target for next year? And then the other KPI that I would think of is part of your sales process. And that is, how many listings did you get last year, or listing appointments did you get last year? So it could be both. It could be the actual listings you did, and how many buyer agreements did you have signed? How many buyers did you actually work with? Again, a real key KPI, because both sides of the business operate differently. You get listings a different way than you get buyers, and vice versa. So that's a KPI. Another one, and these are examples, so I'm not telling you that these have to be your KPIs. I'm just giving you examples of KPIs in your particular industry. Leads and appointments would be a KPI that you'd want to write down. A goal to, how many do we want to have to hit those closed transactions that you've got in number one? And then another one could be, we're really getting granular here, but if you're someone that really works their database, maybe one of the KPIs that you want to measure is, how many active people in your database are there? How many people have actually interacted with you in the last 12 months? How many have referred business to you? And I guess ideally what I'm zeroing in on is, how many A+ contacts do you have in your database? A lot of people, when I ask that question, they'll pull up their database, say, oh yeah, I got about 3,000-4,000 people in my database. I said, well, of those 3,000-4,000, how many have you actually interacted with in the last 12 months? Well, all of you listening, the numbers are really low compared to the total number in their database. So that becomes, to me, a KPI, because in my experience, you're not going to do business with a database unless you're interacting with them. So just because they're a name in the list doesn't mean that they're an active key performance indicator for you. Again, these are all ideas. Remember what I said at the beginning is that I want you to think about today as, are there any ideas that I share that you're not doing today that if you did it, you'd actually start performing better in the coming year? So that's another KPI. So what I want you to think about is that these KPIs that I'm sharing on your page, I think it's page 3, these are the goals that I want you to set for next year. So in understanding what to set for next year, you're going to have to understand what your last year was. So if you jot down these items in the goal lines, you could guess what your number is this past year, and then put what your goal is for the coming year. And then go back to this document when you can actually research your real numbers and put your real numbers in and put your real goals in. Now, one of the areas of that kind of tie into these KPIs is this idea of understanding conversion. I just wanted to touch on this. I'm not going to go deep into it, but I just want to share some thoughts on this. Is that everyone knows that in closing business, we have to understand conversion, and we have to understand what channels our leads are coming from and what conversion we're getting from each of those channels. A channel could be social media, a channel could be a referral database, a channel could be just your CRM and the newsletters that you send out. It could be your child's soccer team and the families that are involved in their league. It can be anything. Where you're getting your leads from to secure appointments with those homeowners or with the buyers that are looking for business, and then what your experience has been in how many leads you need to get to secure one piece of business. What that does is it creates a framework of how many. Like if you tell me that you need so many listings, then I'd like to know how many listing appointments do you need to do to get one listing, and then how many leads do you need to get one listing appointment. So if you go backwards, what it does for you is it defines how many leads you need to get for the end result. And I know that's a lot of math really quick, but that's the idea of you as a salesperson understanding your own conversion, because you can't set goals if you don't with your or KPIs unless you know your own conversion. Now, the next piece that I want you to take away today is this idea, because we're going to get into identifying what your strengths and weaknesses are. and in doing so, there's a key element which is called differentiation that I want you all to understand, because I know, looking at the screen, I know all of you sell value, whether you're a leader of your organization or whether you're a sales professional that runs their own business. You sell value. You don't sell price. And this gentleman here, Michael Porter, I love this quote. He says, if all you're trying to do is essentially the same thing as your rivals, then it's unlikely that you'll be very successful. And the reason why, if you go deeper, he's a Harvard professor, very well written gentleman. He's got a number of books out there. I'm a big fan of his in the way that he thinks and the way that he strategizes. But what he's referring to is that if all of you had exactly the same value proposition, if you did the same thing for all of your clients, the only differentiator you'll have is price, which means that if you're giving the same amount of value to everyone, then you're going to be chasing that commission. You're going to be basically cutting commission, and the one that's going to get the business is the one that's going to, cut last. And the challenge with that, as you all know, is that there's a lot of value you guys provide, and it's just our ability to differentiate ourselves against our competitors and being able to sell that to the end user, or help them understand what that value is to them. So a really important slide, and one to think about in looking at your own value proposition. It's not part of this business plan, but what I would say as an add-on to this is, what is your value proposition? What do you do for your clients that help them get a better selling price for their home, or a better transactional price for their home, or get a better deal as a buyer of a home? What is it in your arsenal that enables them to do better with you, that the commission is just nickels and dimes, the value is dollars? And what does that value proposition look like? Now, what I'd like you to do is, I've shared a lot of stuff right now for you. I want you to look at the next page, and I want you to flip the page, and at the top, it says SWOT analysis. Now, SWOT basically stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, you've already, and let's pretend like you've already set your goals. I know that some of you might have written down 1 or 2 goals for next year. But think about the goals that you're thinking about for next year, and what are the strengths that you have in your business right now that you will leverage to hit those goals. So I just want you to write down one or two. And then I'd like you to write down what weaknesses do you currently have in your business that is holding you back from hitting those goals. So again, just write down one or two, because like I said, this is just a power hour of going through a business planning process, and then you can go deeper into this when after this meeting and when you start working on this independently. But write down a couple just so that you don't lose the thoughts as we go through this. So what weaknesses are holding you back? And you can even look at weaknesses as opportunities. Maybe you've got a really terrible way of keeping your CRM together. Maybe you don't communicate with your database on a regular basis. Maybe your touch points aren't really good. Maybe you have no social media presence. Maybe you've been selling on price and not selling value to your customers. Those are all areas that we kind of touched on as we went through the KPIs, but identify where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then I want you in the opportunity box to write down one area of possibility for your business that you have not explored, or you know about it, but you just haven't gone after it. But you know it's a possibility for you for next year. And then the last item in the bottom right box, I want you to jot down a threat in my world is I refer to as something that's going to take your business off at the knees. So something really significant that's external that can really threaten your business to continuing to go. So one of those threats could be health. In most of our, when we're single operators, or even if we're a leader of a small team, we usually are the drivers of the business. So health is a threat. Another threat could be that the whole business revolves around me. So that's a threat. So I want you to think about what threats do you have on your business continuing on, and jot down something in there. And then I'm going to get you to, so now we've got, let's say, one strength, one weakness, one opportunity, one threat. I want to start getting into strategy. And I don't want you to lose the SWOT page, because we're going to go through a couple of topics that might get you to flip back and say, oh, geez, that's a weakness I've got. I forgot to write that down. So I want to share with you, really just, I'm a CPA, as I mentioned. I'm an MBA, but I'm a business strategist. And if you talk to any business strategists, what we tend to focus on are what is the asset of the business? What are the resources of the business, and how do we leverage those resources? So think of it this way. Actually, let me just put the definition. So it's owned by the company that will provide future revenue and or equity to the business, and it can either be tangible or intangible. So an example of tangible would be your database. Your CRM is a tangible asset of your business. And intangible could be how great you guys are in your sales techniques, your personable skills. Very hard to measure, right? It's an intangible, trainable asset, but it's something that is very hard to measure. So assets could be both tangible and intangible. Both of those assets I just mentioned help you move your business forward. So I want to share, actually, let me give you one more example. So you know that everyone knows the story of the goose that lays the golden egg? Well, the goose is the asset. The eggs are just the result of the goose doing what it's supposed to do. So in your case, the assets are various. So I'm going to share a bunch of key assets that are in your business right now. So one asset is your CRM, or your database. The second asset that I want to share is your brand and marketing collateral. Third one is your working capital and cash flow. Another one that's in your key business assets is your virtual operation. How you operate paperlessly. How do you interact with your clients? That shows technology and shows how good you are at transacting and really making their life better in the way that they work with you. And another key asset in your business is you and your team. So those are 5 areas of business assets that you have today. And I'm going to dive into each one and give you some specifics, because each one of these is an area that you might need to focus on for 2023. And if you just improve in that area, your business is going to get better. So let's jump into the CRM database just for a second. So past clients and database is part of the value or the asset value of your CRM. Your inner circle database. In other words, the people that are closest to you, you've heard people talk about it as a sphere of influence. But that inner circle database is, how big is that? And is it growing? Your referral database, how many people have actually referred business to you or introduced you to somebody? And how many past and current prospects are in the database? I know that people are really good at putting the people that they've done business in their database with, but how many people have you done listing appointments for that didn't go with you, but they went with another agent? And maybe their experience wasn't so great. Are they still in your database so you can follow up with them to see if how their experience was? So again, it's what I find is it's something that is missed, and because it's missed, it's lost opportunity. So think of the database as that golden goose, and I want you to think about your database right now and how healthy it is. Are you using a good CRM? You know, something like KV Core or Asana, or maybe you even use your Outlook as a database. I mean, I think we're way past the whole Rolodex and Black Book era, but but those are tools that we can look at to see the value of our asset. Now, I want you to turn your page, and you're going to see a page that's called Strategies. Now, I just went over one of your assets right now. I want you to look at strategy number 1, and I want you to identify one of these 4 things that you're not so strong at right now, that's not so great in your database, in your CRM. And I want you to write down a strategy that you're going to change in 2023 to make this better for yourself. All right, I'll give you a second to do that. And I'm only going to give you a second because we're kind of tight on time. The next area, and I'm going to do this with each of our assets that I'm going to share with you. Those 5 assets that I brought up on that previous slide, I'm going to go through each one and give you some ideas of where you could improve that asset. So the next one is your brand and marketing collateral. So here are areas of brand and marketing collateral: your web presence and social media, your testimonials, your video content, your lister and buyer presentations, and your value proposition. Now, you don't need to write down every single one of these because I'm going to share the whole deck of slides with you. We're going to have this sent out to you. But what I want you to do is think, as I'm presenting, just think through this about your own business. And how good is my web presence right now? How is my social media? Am I laying any golden eggs from this? Because there's no point in having an asset unless it's doing something for you. So I could have a great social media and I have lots of fun doing it, but you know what? When I reflect back, it hasn't given me one lead. So I'd question that. What can I do to change that? Testimonials, do I have any? What's my Google reviews? What kind of testimonials do I have on my website? If someone asks me, how do I know that you're great at what you do? Well, trust me, I told you that. No, you need testimonials. You need your clients telling them how great you are. Now, video content, again, all of these are purposeful because these are the key areas that you as agents need to be great at for you to provide the value that you're going to provide to get the maximum commission instead of selling on price. So the last one, sorry, I didn't put the last one up there, which was value proposition. And that's what I asked you guys to do as an exercise. So strategy number 2, if you look at your page, your workbook again, I want you to write something down that hits one of these 5 areas. A weakness that you've got currently that you're going to put a strategy in place to fix. So it could be as simple as, hey, I'm going to do 1 testimonial every week for the next 8 weeks. Or it's going to be, I'm going to go back to some past clients and get their testimonial. Or I'm going to do some video content and maybe I get a video testimonial from some of my clients. Very easy to do. The next area I want to touch on is, I'm just watching the clock here, is our working capital. So this is an interesting one, and I want you to listen closely here, because this is one that usually doesn't get focused on in business planning. And really, what working capital is, it's the financial means you have as an agent or as a business owner or as a CEO to drive your business forward next year. And we all know that we're going to be going into some really tight cash flow months. I already shared with you that interest rates have risen, and there's potential for some tightening of the belt in the next few months. So our January, February in the North American market is not always the greatest months of production. So we've got to be aware of that. So our financial budget monthly needs to think about that, and what kind of business we usually see us doing in January and February, and then what are our regular monthly costs. So by putting a monthly budget together for ourselves, this helps us plan and manage our cash flow. We need to understand our operating costs. We need to understand what kind of pipeline we have of let's say, of clients or prospects that we're talking to right now that might come to fruition in the next 30 days. And we need to understand, if we are going to go through a couple of tight months, what our financing can be, so that I can still advertise, so that I can still do my social media, so I can still send those items of value out to my sphere, and I can still have lunch and connect with them. These are all activities I have to do in January, February to have a great March. So for us to be able to do that, all 4 of these boxes need to be strong. And I need to know what this looks like for myself. So again, piece of advice, this working capital is an asset of yours, and we need to treat it. I brought up that analogy of the golden goose. I need to feed my goose. I need to make sure that it's in a good place. It's living in a good place. It's warm. It's happy. The happier it is, the more golden eggs it lays. Well, every one of these assets, we think of the same way. What can we do to improve it? Because each one of these is going to help us perform better next year. So again, back to your page. You're going to go to strategy number 3, and you're going to jot down a strategy. If one of these things is weak, it might just be simply, I've never done a monthly budget before, so I'm going to do one this year. And I'm going to have that done by the end of December. And that could be specifically what your strategy is. The last one, the next one I want to jot down is virtual operation. So this actually came into play because of COVID. We were all tested on how we could transact virtually, because some of our clientele wouldn't allow us, there wasn't a lot of face-to-face interaction, or less of it. And we maybe some of our clients were okay with it, but then we wanted to make sure we got the clients that were also not okay with it. So those that were really good operating virtually, whether it be client meetings, whether it be virtual showings, whether it would be a paperless process, or even how we communicate, the various ways we communicate. My challenge to all of you is, where would you rate your virtual operation right now? Which parts of your virtual operation are kind of weak? And I would add to my SWOT in my workbook if I have a weakness there. And I would add to my strategy, which part of my weakness do I want to fix in 2023? Maybe I'm not that great with my paperless environment, and maybe I need to do some training. My brokerage has a phenomenal paperless solution, but I've never really spent the time understanding how it works and how do I make it easy on my clients. Where am I wasting my time? These are all things that I would be thinking about in my own virtual operation, and whether I'd give myself an A+ or I'd give myself a C-. And then on my strategy page, what I'd like you to do is I want you to write, what are you going to do to change that for 2023? What steps are you going to, what strategy are you going to write down that fixes that? And then the last item is you and your team. So this one is very specific to you personally and the team that's around you, if you have a team. But it's your knowledge and expertise, it's your reputation, it's your health and wellness, your interpersonal skills. A lot of these are intangible, actually. They're hard to measure, but as an agent, as a CEO of your business, where you're strong here and where you're not so strong. So my question is, if you identify any one of these 5 areas as a weakness, what strategy are you going to write down on page 3? Actually, it's not page 3. It's probably page 5. It says page 3 on the bottom. Sorry about that. On page 3, what strategy are you going to write down to attack one of these 5 things? It might even just be that, hey, when I'm down to my goal weight and I'm playing sports, I'm a hockey player myself, and I'm out there playing hockey with my buddies, once a week, and I'm golfing in the summer. I'm going for walks with Colleen, my wife. When I'm doing all of that, I'm just at my peak performance. So therefore, health and wellness is something that if I'm weak at right now, I got to focus on. And I know that if I do that, my business is actually going to be better. So you can see how just looking at one of these items, identifying what strategy I'm going to take next year, writing it down is the first step. Now, I want to get practical on you here. We've got 10 minutes left, and I want to set you up for success after sort of you jotting down 5 or 6 strategies. If you flip the page in your workbook, your next page, which actually says page 4 on the bottom, it says creation of tactics. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time on this page, because if you don't do this, I guarantee this workbook that we're looking at right now is going to be sitting on a shelf or in your blue bin, and it's going to be collecting dust. So what I want you to do is I want you to transfer one of your strategies from the previous page onto the top of this page. Okay, and do that right now. So flip over to the previous page, pick one of the strategies that are there and transfer it to the top of this page. And then what I want you to think is, what can you do today? What step or what action could you do after this webinar is done this afternoon? What action can you take to move that strategy 1 degree further, or 1 step closer to the goal? So let's say one of your weaknesses was, I don't have a great CRM. I really need to do something about this. And I've just literally it's been a great 2 or 3 years because of COVID, and business has just been landing in my lap. Well, I better think about things differently in 2023, because I gotta get my database organized. I gotta start connecting with the people that are close to me and know how good I am. And I need to go get business instead of it coming to me. And I need to put some process in place to make sure that I've got something there. Well, I need a great CRM. That might be my weakness, and I know that I put in my strategy, I'm going to do this. So my first tactic might be, one of my friends at Remax Associates told me that they use KV Core over there and they love it, and it's driving all kinds of leads to them. Well, shoot, I haven't even looked into KV Core myself. So I'm going to put that down as something I want to look into. I want to look into Top Producer. I might pick 3 CRMs that I want to look into that various people have told me about. And then I'm going to compare them, and I'm going to get a demo on them. And then that could be tactic number 1. I could do that this afternoon. Tactic number 2 might be something that I'm going to do by the end of the week. So I want you to think about tactic number 2. And for my example, number 2 might be, I'm going to go into my Outlook database, and I'm going to check through everyone that needs to be in my CRM. And I'm going to start to accumulate the data that I have. I'm going to go through all my business that I did in the last 3 years, because I still have record of that. And I'm going to write down all of those contacts and make sure that they're in my database. And I'm going to go through a questionnaire that I have that helps me build a database. And I know a lot of you might have used one of those in the past. But those are the steps that I'm going to take in the next week. And I could write those down on my page under tactics. And I'm going to put the implementer is me, and I'm going to put a timeline. The first timeline, like I mentioned, is going to be this afternoon. The second timeline is going to be by Friday of next week. And I'm going to jot down all those tactics. And you know what my last tactic is going to be? Is going to be after my training of the CRM that I've already implemented, I'm going to launch my 12 let's call it my 26 touch program or whatever it's going to be. Maybe it's my 12 touch program that I'm starting with my CRM. Or maybe I'm using my CRM to send out quality information to my database and then following up with a phone call. Whatever it is that you're doing, it then gets added to this tactic list. So that's how we break down our strategies into tactics. And I'll tell you right now, being a strategist and a past CEO of a corporation, it doesn't matter if you're a one-man show or one-woman show, or if you've got a team of 10, or if you've got an organization of 1,000. If you don't break down your strategies into tactics, I guarantee 80% of the time you're not going to do them. So by breaking it down, my last, I guess, recommendation to all of you is that now I want you to, if you are really a producer, and this is maybe another aha moment for some of you. Some of you have written your business plan in a document like I've got right here. But what I'm going to suggest to you is that if you use something like Monday.com, or if you use something like Asana, or if you use some kind of project management software like that, and you are really committed to your plan, those softwares, I use Monday.com. Love it. Easy. I'm all about easy. It's really user-friendly. I don't have shares in Monday.com, so I don't benefit from me telling you this. I'm just sharing you my experience. So I've used Microsoft Project before, a little too complicated for me to use. But Monday.com, real easy. And I have all my strategies and tactics in there. And what's nice about it being an online process, I'm really committed to planning, and I'm able to go in and change things on the fly. And that way, when my plan, I keep revisiting my plan and keep changing it. Like maybe I'm doing something and I'm banging my head against the wall and it's not working. Well, I can go into that strategy and change it. Hey, I'm not going to keep doing that. I'm going to change it and see if I can get a better result. So that was back at the beginning of what I was sharing today about, reflecting on results and then redoing the process. So going back to your goals, going back to your SWOT, going back to your strategies and building out tactics. If you have something like a Monday.com or an Asana or what's the other one that I've some of my clients use? The name escapes me. Anyway, it's also a project management software that you can change your plan on the fly. Think about that. That would be, let's say, going from a C to a B to an A+ entrepreneur. An A+ entrepreneur will be committed to a software like that, because now you're going to focus your time on planning and working on your business instead of in it. Last couple of thoughts I want to leave you with is that I love this quote from Thomas Edison, and that is, opportunity is missed by most because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And to me, this is so fitting because, listen, talk is cheap in my mind. It's what we do that drives result. And you guys, as I mentioned, are CEOs. You have the power to take the steps this afternoon, or you have the power to go golf instead. That's up to you. And how you drive your business forward, I know how heavy that phone is to prospect. But the ones that prospect are the ones that drive business. So what are you going to do to make that happen for yourself? And then the last, and it's really work ethic. So for me, it's even this business plan. I want to leave you with a thought that who is going to block time next week in their calendar to finish the plan that we started today? Who's going to put 2 hours aside in your calendar and be committed to finishing their plan? That's what I'm talking about when I talk about dressed in overalls and looks like work. That's the kind of work that entrepreneurs that are successful, they do. They don't leave it up to chance. And then the last item, just another thought to leave you with, is you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And it's a Zig Ziglar line that I love. And it just means that sometimes we get intimidated because, like, oh, I don't feel so worthy, and I'm not happy with what I'm doing. I'm too heavy to get on my bike to exercise. But you know what? The way we become great is taking that first step. So I want each of you to think about the tactics that you started writing, build out these strategies, and think about this Zig Ziglar comment, and just get into action. Anyway, I'm taking you to the top of the hour. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and I want to thank Ron Snow and Daryl and the team for having me be part of this with you guys. I'm going to share. We're going to share the slide deck with you. So we're going to send that out to you guys so that you have the slides. So hopefully you weren't sitting there feverishly writing. And I know that those of you that might not have the workbook, that can be resent to you as well. And I wish you all the best in the coming year, everyone.